What's up, people? I am back for another video. Today, I am going to be reviewing. I'm going to try to do two videos today. I'm going to do this one. That's why I'm doing this one right now. And then the main video today, I'm gunning. It's not today, tomorrow, but I'm going to gun for today. Is I'm going to review um, The Departed. So that's going to be fun to watch. But today, or yesterday, technically, I watched a movie called Havoc, directed by Gareth Evans, who he's done the Raid films. Trying to see what else he's done. Because those are the two that come off my head. Okay, so the Raid is pretty much his only big movie, but the Raid is was so unique, and obviously I've talked about it in the video, and we don't talk about the Raid too, but Havoc. This was a movie I saw a trailer for, and I saw some discussion around it on Twitter, and a lot of people were saying it was a decent movie, and I saw Tom Hardy was in it, and Tom Hardy, especially this year after watching him in Mobland, been watching him in that. So I want to see how he is in this, and I gotta say, he's really good in this movie. The premise is he's a jaded cop, um, who has to protect, because he works for uh, Forrest Whitaker, who wants him to protect his son, who's implicated in a murder, and like basically this main. I'm assuming they're yakuza. I'm just gonna assume. Oh no, they're the triads. Okay, the main lady who's the head of the triads is coming after her son because they think her son was the one, or they think Forrest Whitaker's son was the one who killed her son. When in actuality, it was the real bad guy of the film, Timothy Oliphant, who's basically a corrupt cop who um basically a year prior killed somebody, and they made it that he then they basically made it seem like it was Tom Hardy, who his character is Patrick Walker. He's basically like he's a father trying to see his daughter, and I'll be honest, I'm just kind of done with the separated couple trope. Why does every couple in Hollywood now have to always be broken up? It's a tired thing. It's become to a point like where it's almost propaganda. Not everybody has broken families. A lot of people actually have fucking mom and dad, they're fucking married. Why can't we just have that? It's like Hollywood is scared to write that. I think one, they maybe just think it's boring. And the thing is, it didn't even matter because I'm gonna be real, his girlfriend or wife is barely in the movie. Like she's not really in the movie that much. Like she's in like the one scene where you see him arguing with her on the phone, and then she shows up, and then Patrick's partner, what's her name? Ellie. Ellie is his rookie partner, and basically he's a jaded cop, and he has to try to protect his son. And that's kind of the movie. I do like that the plot's really simple. They didn't overcomplicate it and have a million subplots. I do love the action. The action is very hard hitting. The only thing I just wish, I do agree with some criticisms that I was saying that they spam the guns too much. I really would have rather them focused on the hand to hand. Because, I mean, Gareth, that's what you're good at. Even as bad as the Raid 2 was, the one thing I will say, it had good fight scenes. So, I can still say the Raid 2 had good fight scenes. So, like, I would have just rather him just focus on the hand to hand than the gunplay. Because I'll agree, there were times where no one was reloading. It was just like infinite ammo. But I do love the aesthetic of the world, and I will agree because I did go back and see because I was seeing a lot of people say like the CGI is really bad, and I don't know. I just wasn't noticing it when I was initially watching, but I went back and like looking at some of the pictures. Yeah, some of the CGI isn't great, but if I'm gonna be honest, that's like probably my only real gripe. I love the acting. I actually love how gritty this world is. I thought this movie was a tight hour 47. It wasn't too long. And for like a Netflix film, it's not bad. Especially considering Netflix has had kind of a bad string of bad movies lately. So to finally have one that's pretty decent. It's not the greatest movie in the world. I would probably give this like a 7.5. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So, but I definitely recommend watching it. And I'll agree, Tom Hardy's accent's not the greatest either because he does like an American voice. I get it. He's supposed to be an American cop, but just leave him with his British accent. It sounds much more natural when I hear him with his British accent. It just feels more natural. I feel like when you try to force him to do an American voice, it just does not work for the most part. Um, but I mostly enjoyed everything. I think the only thing I didn't care for is Charlie and the mayor's son or Forrest Whitaker's son. I didn't really care for either of their characters. It was weird how like they were trying to portray Charlie as scared, but she was straight up like all, but also really good at killing. It was a little weird. It was like, I will say they got Michelle Watterson to play the main. I'm gonna look up what her name is. Um, I'll just say the main lady of the triads. Um, her main assassin is Michelle Watterson, who's actually an MMA fighter. And there's a scene where she's straight up fighting Tom Hardy, and I find it believable because she's an MMA fighter. And also throughout the movie, she's not just using a hand. I will say the same thing with Charlie. The one props I would give it, she wasn't just straight up using fists and trying to brute strength during the fights. She was using her weapons. There was a scene she used like a cleaver, a machete. She uses a gun later. I that's the kind of shit I prefer. Like I don't have a problem if you have a woman who looks believable, where I'm like, okay, I could buy her fighting a dude. Like this, like Michelle Waters, she's an MMA fighter, you know. So it makes I could kind of more buy her hand to hand fighting. Tom Hardy. So I'll get yeah, like I said, I mostly think this movie is good. It has some issues. Um, I do think the pacing could have been a little better, at least in the beginning. I do think this was a little slow at the start, but I mostly like everything. And I thought the ending really hits when Patrick has to um, kill Vincent, his former friend. And the look on Patrick's face, Tom Hardy really sold it. Like he's already jaded already, so to have you kill your former friend, and it's like, man, like you feel for him. Like they really nailed that. Ending on that was a strong point. I think that's why I'm giving it a 7.5. I really love that ending. So, oh, I guess really quick before I get more into, I guess we get started on the actual review. Um, and I saw Sinners, not in theater, but I watched it with my friend Calman, and I gotta say, I definitely think this is overhyped. I don't think it's bad. I gave it a 7, but I have a lot of issues, and I don't want to do a video on it. I'm just gonna be honest, as that would require me having to watch it again. Um, but I just the issue I have really with the movie is the unnecessary. There's a tacked on ending where Shorty, who it's basically that's Michael B. Jordan's character. He plays twins, which I thought that aspect was good. The performances were good. I love the music. And once the vampire stuff gets started, this is when the movie gets started. But I think it took too long to get there. It's unnecessarily 2 hours. This is another one I think you could have trimmed this down to like, because I think this movie's like 2 hours and 17. It did not need to be that long. Easily, you could have trimmed that down to at least an hour 50, for being honest. Also, the unnecessary ending where Shorty, because there's the guy who sold him the club. Apparently, he was the Grand Dragon of the KKK, and they show up in the end trying to kill him, and he comes back and kills all of them. What was the point of that tacked on ending? Why? Like that was one of those things that just threw me off when I was watching it. The movie already ended when he beat the vampires, and the main vampire is one of my favorite characters of the movie, but I felt like he was barely in it. There's a scene when you have these Native American guys who are chasing the main vampire, who we basically are to assume are vampire hunters, but they disappear. They like literally leave the lady's house and then never come back in the movie. I just I just feel like that tacked on ending like felt like I was watching a different movie. Like, why was that there? The movie had already naturally concluded, or because there's a mid credit scene, they could have just played that mid credit scene in the. That could have just been the ending. You could have just jumped ahead after he beats the vampires to 1992, and that's how the film should have just actually ended. It was dumb. Like, it was because we have to, with black people, you can't just have stories, horror stories that are just horror. Oh no, but we have to, because we're setting in the South. It has to be about racism and the civil rights movement or slavery. It's just like we have to include the KKK. Why not make it more of a horror movie? You have a movie about vampires. Focus on that. Black people could be scared as vampires as anyone else, but no, we have to always make the metaphor racism. It's tired. I might make this a video on its own. Maybe next week I'll do this, or maybe even the end of the week, um, where I talk about like the issue with, I'll say it, like black directors. I don't care how, if it sounds bad. I'm just being honest. This idea that it's not just black director, but issue with like Hollywood not letting black people just make horror films. It's always has to go back to race. You have a movie about vampires. Let it be about that. You could have the racism stuff in the background. Maybe you have it for a scene. But let's actually make it a vampire movie. But anyway, I don't want to go on too much about it. I might talk about this more. Maybe I'll talk about this more tonight or tomorrow when I do The Departed. Like before I go on and talk about The Departed, I'll talk about this a little bit more. But anyways, let's get into an actual movie I think I liked way more. Like I'll say this: Sinners is well made, and I'm happy it's doing well because at least it's something that's not based off an IP that's doing well. But it is nowhere near as good as some are saying. I'm just being fucking real. It is nowhere near as good as some people are saying. But anyways, let's get into Havoc. Oh, subscribe to Big Down Podcast. We should be live on Saturday. Um, Talking's. I'm gonna try to look into some news, figure out what to talk about. So. Anyway, the movie starts with we meet Charlie, Mia, Johnny, who I think that's the son, that's Forrest Whitaker's son's character, and Wes. They're trying to steal a bunch of stuff, and they're being chased by Vincent and his people, and unfortunately an accident happens, and Cortez is injured during it, and that's why he's in the hospital for like the remainder of the film. So this is where they were about to meet. I'll just say Sui. It starts with a T. I'll just say Sui. Um, the local triad leader. Then a gang of masked people enter her son's house because that's who's like the leader. And basically everybody's killed because then we cut to this is where we meet Patrick. He's buying gifts for his daughter. Then we meet his partner Ellie, who's like a rookie cop. And I didn't mind them. I thought they were cool. She was an okay character. They had decent enough chemistry. They go to the crime scene, and this is where they see everybody dead. I love the moment when um Patrick's like kind of like thinking about like the scene playing. This was a good way to show what happened, but it's like him imagining it because I love when movies do this, or even like detective movies do this, where like they kind of like imagine and then they're playing out in their head the scene. Like even Taken did that when he was imagining his daughter getting taken, kind of cutting back to that scene earlier in the movie. So I did like that. I thought that was cool. Then um We learn the assailants are. I'll just spoil it. It's fucking um, Vincent and his people because they're in league with Sui's brother, Ching, who's basically he's disgruntled because he's mad at his sister because she picked her son over him, and that's what we find out later. And that final act is really good. Like even before we get to the part where Patrick shoots Vincent, like just that overall that final act was pretty good. So we Patrick visits Cortez at the hospital. Um, And then this is where there's a scene where Walker remembers Vincent killing an undercover cop, and that's part of the reason why Patrick's so disgruntled. Basically, he's basically because even like the Netflix description is jaded cop, it says jaded cop. So, and I think Tom Hardy plays that well. I just wish they just let him have his actual accent. I understand, I guess for all intents and purposes, maybe you can't be a British and be an American cop. I don't know, maybe how that works. Maybe I don't know how it works in some jurisdictions. I don't know, but maybe that's why. But I would have just rather Tom Hardy just let him have his British accent. He sounds so much more natural when I hear him talk. Like watching him in Mobland, just hearing his natural tongue, it just works better. Because I'm gonna be real, I just don't think he does a great American accent. There's some movies he can pull it off. I didn't really feel like in this one he pulled it off that much. I'm just gonna be honest. There were times where it was a little distracting, you know. And this is where Patrick has a meeting with Lawrence, who's trying to run for mayor, but then he learns that his son is being pinned for the murder of Sui's son. And this is where, like, I think a little like it's either before this scene or a little bit after, where we see Sui come in and basically, I'll admit this was cold as fuck, where she just killed all her lieutenants except the one, and basically told him, left the last one alive, like, you better look for my son or you're next, basically. I'll admit that was fucking cold. She just like capped like it was like four of them. I think because it was like five because he was the one that was left alive. So she killed like four of them like in a row. And I'm gonna say the kills are brutal, man. Like they don't hold back on some of the violence. Like you'll see people's heads just like kablooey. So I will say that. So Lawrence basically demands Patrick help his son basically because he's basically has blackmail on him. They don't say it, but I'm assuming Lawrence knows about the undercover cop being killed, and they made it seem like it was Patrick who did it. Obviously, it wasn't him, but So then I'm just gonna jump ahead to the club scene where Charlie, because Luis Guzman is in the movie too. He before that scene, Patrick goes to Luis Guzman and basically forced him to give him information on Charlie. So they find her, and initially she doesn't want to go with him, and that's when Vincent and his people show up. Then like a bunch of dudes show up. And then that's where Mia, when she sees um Vincent, basically identifies him as one of the killers. So I'm assuming she probably saw him take his mask off at some point. Um, they try to arrest her. Patrick refuses, and that's when like a bunch of dudes, I'm assuming, who work for the Triad show up, and they have like a bunch of weapons. They come in, and we get a pretty cool fight scene. If I'm being honest, like every Tom Hardy was taking him out. Even this is like probably the one moment where I'm gonna say it, Timothy Olyphant's kind of a good guy because he does help take out the Triads, and yeah, this fight scene was pretty good. I thought it was still easy to follow. I liked that it wasn't shaky cam and uber jump cuts and all that shit. That's the one thing. Like, this is the dude who did the raid, so he knows how to do his fights. I just wish there was a bit more hand to hand like there was in this scene. There was just some parts. when he gets to like the giant shootouts. Don't get me wrong, I like giant shootouts, but did want more hand to hand just because how good I know he can do with hand to hand fights because we've seen it, you know. So we even see Charlie fight, which I didn't have a problem with her fighting. I just didn't love the like she's like horrified, but she's still trying to like, but she's still like slicing them in the ankle and slicing them with a cleaver. I'm like, I get you're fighting to survive, and maybe I can to an extent understand maybe you don't want to kill, but it is a little like jarring where you're like horrified, but you're still slicing motherfuckers up left and right. It doesn't compute to me. Um, but they manage to get out, basically make it out alive. That's when Walker basically has to take Charlie and Mia. Okay, so Mia's the girl. Charlie's Lawrence's son. Okay, I thought Charlie was the girl. Okay. So while this is happening, before a scene before we got to the club fight, Sui has Lawrence kidnapped by her people because basically, she thinks his son is the one who did it. So he's like, I'm just gonna take you. So yeah, she kidnaps Lawrence, and they have there's a scene where this is a little bit later in the movie, but where Walker calls Lawrence and says he found his son and basically told him where the cabin is, but you don't hear him talk. It's Sui holding the phone. So basically she knows where they are now. But there's another scene where Patrick calls Ellie and basically says, "Hey, can you meet me at this cabin?" Before, or no, she tells him. He tells her to go to the hospital because I think he starts thinking Cortez is in danger. Because we find out that this is where we find out Ching is working with Vincent, because Vincent calls him and basically tells him, "You got to meet me tonight," and all this shit. And I think basically tells him you gotta kill Cortez. So Ching kills Cortez pretty brutally. Like, I thought he wasn't gonna die. I thought they were gonna get sick. Nope. And then he kills his wife. And this is where Ellie chases him down, but manages to take him pretty easily, I will say. But she takes him, she arrests him, and that's when she heads to the place where they're gonna meet. So I'll just get to that point of the movie where Vincent meets with Ching, but then that's when Ellie basically comes out of one of the because it's near like the train tracks. She comes out of a train holding a shotty to both Vincent and his people, and basically arrests them. And then that's when so I'll just the movie is paced well. It's not a long movie. I do like that there's not a bunch of like filler. There's not like unnecessary plots in there. I love when a movie is just nice and tight. Like, what I mean? Like, just, we're in and out. That's what she said. Like, no extra bullshit. Just, because, don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with longer movies if it makes sense. But sometimes it is nice to just watch a movie that's just, like, only an hour and a half or an hour 47 minutes, but we don't have any unnecessary side stuff. We're just going. I don't mind breakneck speed movies sometimes where it's just going. We're going. So, Sui's people show up at the cabin. We get a big, basically, shootout where they're trying to take Mia and Charlie, and basically plan to kill him. And pretty good fight scene. This fight goes for a while. They're all just taking them all out. They're all trying to come in, but they manage to get Mia and Charlie while Patrick's distracted. This is where we have the fight where he fights the assassin. And like I said, I like how believable it was because she's not some petite girl. They got a UFC fighter. I'm like, I don't have a problem if you're going to have a scene if a girl fights a guy. Just make it believable. Get their athletic chicks out there. Their MMA chicks. Hell, get a wrestling chick And in a movie like this, I'm gonna say it, she didn't really have any dialogue. Not at all. She's just look intimidating, especially in a role like that where they don't need to talk much because there's dude equivalents of that where you're just the big heavy and you don't really have a lot of dialogue. Maybe you say one thing, but in this case, I don't think she said anything really, and she didn't need to. Just look intimidating. There's scenes where she's just using a gun, shooting at things. Like they just like she's a badass. Just be a badass. Be the silent badass. She looked believable against Tom Hardy because she's actually trained. They didn't get just some small chick. That's the little details I like. That's all I'm asking. I don't have a problem with women fighting dudes in movies. I understand it's a movie. Just make it believable. Explain a reason. If you do get a smaller girl, explain maybe she has powers or something. That's why she's able to. But in this case, you got a believable chick. You got an MMA fighter. So that's believable. That's fucking believable. So it was believable that she was it was a little bit harder for Tom Hardy to struggle to fight her. Yeah, she kind of kicked his ass. She even threw him under a roof, but I'm assuming because that there was stuff like on top of it. It was either a roof or was like an attic kind of fell on him. So, and she's about to go for the kill, but because I think the thing fell on her, because the bunch of stuff fell on him, he managed to find a harpoon and shoots her through the throat, basically, pretty brutally. Like, he had to resort to using a weapon, and that's believable. She's a trained fighter. This isn't just some, because the triads were trained, but I'm figuring, they looked younger. They did look younger. So it's, believable why Tom Hardy's kind of able to take them out, because they're still younger. But she's actually trained. But in general, I just love when the hero has to get creative. Even if they look believable. There's times in movies Arnold had to get creative with his kills. And he didn't always just was able to... Most of the time he did, but there are times he had to... Occasionally, he struggled with the fight, so he had to be a bit more creative and use his brain to try to take out the target. I love that shit. I just, in general, love that as a trope, so... I like that he had to use a weapon. Oh, you gotta also understand, think about it like this. He's trying to save Charlie and Mia because at this point they're captured. They all have guns on them. They're basically done. They're literally about to die. So it's like he probably just figured, all right, let's use a weapon so we can make this quicker. The only thing I didn't truly love that I think they could have explained better is after he kills her, for some reason he was just on the ground for a bit. It seemed like they wanted to have him. What they should have done, just have him for a second get knocked out. Maybe after the fight he passes out for a second because he's tired from the fight. That's believable. Because it felt a weird way to have him be incapacitated, but he really wasn't because he's like, I understand that a bunch of shit fell on him, but he was still able to use a harpoon, and I felt like that because there's a moment he eventually gets up, so it's not like his legs are broken or anything. So it's not even that. I would have rather them just maybe he just passes out or something. He's from a little bit because a bunch of shit fell on him. That's a believable reason that after he killed her, maybe he lose the last of his energy and he had to pass out for a second, and then. That's when you could have had the moment when Ellie comes, she brings Vincent, and this is where we get the reveal. And reveal that it was her brother who had her son killed. Because he was jealous that he picked her son. She picked her son instead of him. And he felt like it was his birthright kind of thing. Then we basically get a big shootout. Vincent gets free, and his person gets free. And his partner gets free, and we get a big shootout. I did feel like the only criticism I have, it wasn't uber hard to follow, but I did feel like this everybody was shooting at each other. It was okay, we know who because it was the triads were shooting at Vincent. Vincent was shooting at the triads, but also shooting at Walker. So it was just like, okay, it was a little hard to follow here, but um, Ellie manages to kill Vince's partner. Actually, no, he has her pinned because she ran out of ammo, and Charlie, because this was after the guy shot at Charlie, but his father jumped in front, so Lawrence died. And yeah, he killed the guy who killed his dad, and then um, Ching shoots his sister, and then Ching gets shot by Vincent, and then Walker confronts Vincent, and this is where I really love the movie. Um, and this he attempts to flee on a train with the coke and the money, but he gets shot off, and then he tries to shoot at uh, Walker, and Walker unfortunately has to shoot him, and he's kind of sad about it. And Ellie lets Mia and Charlie go because they got like fake passports and they're gonna leave the country because they have too much heat. Like with the triads, especially after the leader getting killed. Even if she knew, who's to say the other ones didn't know? Who's to say they don't know? Because they don't reveal. The movie just kind of ends. Like with Walker just kind of uncertain. That's it. Like that's how the movie ends. So we don't really know like the aftermath of everything. So I really like this movie. I thought the ending was really good. I like the characters. I agree about the CGI being bad, but it didn't really bother me because I'm just gonna I'm gonna partially accept Netflix movies. They're gonna skimp out on that kind of shit. I'm just gonna be real with you guys. They're gonna skimp out on that. So I'm not. This isn't like, you know, fucked up thing is even Hollywood, even the big Hollywood release movies, even have bad CGI at times. So I'm outside of that. Like I mostly like the aesthetic of the movie. I thought the movie delivered. I like Tom Hardy's performance in this. I want to see Tom Hardy in more things like this. No more like Venom, no more Venom type movies anymore. I feel like those movies just waste his talent. He's such a good actor, and he didn't even get to show it in those movies. Versus when you watch him in like Mobland, and to an extent, even in this movie, I don't think this movie is as good as Mobland, but I think when he's allowed to act and actually give a performance, he can. It's not like I think he's a bad actor. I think it's just I mean, I figure he probably just wanted to get his bag. You know, those movies paid him a lot of money, so it's like I'm not gonna hate on that. I don't think it was even his fault. I think that was just the way those movies were written. You know, because we're in this Marvel kind of era where everything has to be quippy, and I just feel like he's not really allowed to show his talent. Because when he's allowed to, he's a fucking good actor, and I felt like he was good in this movie. If I'm Tom Hardy, I would honestly just stick to doing either movies like this, just movies where he's allowed to show more of his performance and not just be just has to do this shitty quippy. Like honestly, he should not do any more. Like I'm okay with like big action, but no more like superhero stuff. Is kind of what I'm saying. He should no more superhero movies because I feel like unfortunately even DC to an extent, both Marvel and DC right now, they don't really value great acting. It's just do your quips and try to make everything lighthearted. Everything has to have a joke in it. That's unfortunately, and with those movies, you're not really allowed to show your range. We're not in the era of superhero movies where they actually still value great acting, right? You know, I just unfortunately think we're kind of removed. So I'd rather him just not do movies like that. Do more stuff like this. Definitely more stuff like Mobland, where he's allowed to actually show his talent. But yeah, this movie's a 7.5. I enjoy it. I'd watch it again. I don't think I'd like. I'm not gonna rush to watch it again, but I would watch it again. So I'm not like it's a nice movie. I thought this was definitely better than the Raid 2. I liked it definitely more than the Raid 2. Um, I thought Timothy Olyphant really did good as the villain. I did want a bit more of him, though. I think that's if I had another criticism, definitely wanted a bit more of him. Like, let us see him be a corrupt cop. I felt they showed us, but I wanted more of it a little bit. Well, I mean, I understand the movie probably just wanted to mainly focus on Walker, but I do think you could have focused on him a little bit. Like, have like one or two scenes of more scenes of just him being a corrupt cop. But outside of that, like I said, I don't really have any big gripes with this movie. I thought the action definitely delivered. That club scene was really good. The choreography was well done. It was nice actually be able to see fucking everything. Not like shitty shaky cam and fucking. But I'll even say this: I'll take shaky cam over fucking uber fucking jump cuts. There was none of that shit. Unfortunately, a lot of action movies, some of the definitely the 2010s and even the later 2010s had that problem. So I'm happy this one didn't. So, but yeah, guys, that's really all I gotta say about it. It's a good movie. I definitely recommend it. It's on Netflix. If you have it, if you have Netflix, and if you don't, it should be on the C's because usually the C's is pretty good about uploading Netflix shit. So, but anyways, guys, tonight I'm gunning for tonight. I'm gonna review The Departed. I love that fucking movie, man. That twist ending, all these great actors. Um, One of Scorsese's best. I don't think it's his best movie, but definitely one of his best. I definitely love it. It's very watchable, and yeah, it's like a little bit like I think it's like 2.5 hours, something like that. But it's paced very well, and it's not an uber action movie. There's cop action at times, but it's definitely more about the dialogue. But the dialogue is so good, it hooks you. So I don't have a problem with movies having like a lot of dialogue, and you just gotta make the dialogue compelling. That's all I really ask. But anyways, guys, I'm gonna call it here. Subscribe to Pin Down Podcast, and yeah. All right, y'all. Talk to y'all later.